If you receive the UK state pension, there is a new forecast that could mean roughly £500 more a year, from April 2027. But there is an important point I want to make right at the beginning. This is a forecast, not a confirmed increase. The final state pension uprating will depend on the figures used under the triple lock later this year. Current earnings data is pointing toward an increase of around 4.1%, which could take the full new state pension from £241.30 a week to approximately £251.20. That works out at roughly £9.90 more each week, or around £515 more over a full year. So today, I want to explain exactly where this forecast comes from, how the triple lock works, who could benefit, why the figure could still change, and one important issue that pensioners need to keep an eye on as we move toward 2027. I'm Emily Lilly, and you're watching Emily Talks ***. There has been a lot of discussion about the state pension recently, and understandably so. For millions of people, the state pension is an important part of their retirement income. Even a relatively small weekly increase can make a difference when you're managing household bills, food costs, energy, transportation, and other everyday expenses. The latest wage figures have now produced a new indication of what could happen next April. The Office for National Statistics has reported annual average earnings growth of around 4.1% in the relevant measure being watched for the triple lock. If that rate ultimately becomes the figure used for the 2027 uprating, the full new state pension could increase from its current 2026 over 27 rate of £241.30 per week to around £251.20. That would be an increase of approximately £9.90 per week. Over 52 weeks, that is roughly £515. But please don't treat £515 as a guaranteed payment. The final percentage is not confirmed yet. There is still another month of earnings data involved in the official calculation, and inflation is also one of the three measures in the triple lock. So, let's break this down carefully. Main Section 1. Where could the £500 increase come from? First, let's look at the current state pension. For the 2026 over 27 financial year, the full new state pension is £241.30 per week, or £12,548.60 over 52 weeks. Not every pensioner receives £241.30. Your actual state pension depends on your national insurance record and your individual circumstances. Some people receive less. Some people may receive more because of additional entitlement under the old system or a protected payment. So, when you hear a headline saying the state pension could rise by around £500, it is important to understand that this refers to an example based on the ** full new state pension, ***. Now, let's talk about the triple lock. The triple lock is designed to increase the state pension each year by whichever is highest out of three measures. Those are average earnings growth, inflation, or 2.5%. Money Helper explains that the earnings measure looks at average wage growth over a particular period, while inflation is based on the Consumer Prices Index. So imagine, for example, that the relevant figures were 4.1% for earnings, 2.6% for inflation, and 2.5% as the minimum. The highest number would be 4.1%. That would mean a 4.1% state pension increase. And that's why the latest wage figures matter so much. A 4.1% increase applied to £241.30 would produce a weekly payment of roughly £251.20. That is where the approximately £500 annual increase comes from. Again, though, I want to emphasize the difference between ***, a forecast, and an official announcement. ***. We don't have the final 2027 state pension rate yet. The government will need the relevant data before the final increase can be established. So, if you see a headline saying pensioners have already been officially awarded £500 extra for 2027, be careful. At this stage, the responsible way to describe it is as a *** potential increase based on current figures ** number. Main section 2, who could benefit? So who could actually see more money? The people most directly affected are those receiving the state pension that is covered by the triple lock. This includes people receiving the new state pension and people receiving the basic state pension under the previous system. However, the amount each person receives can be different. That's because the state pension isn't one identical payment for everyone. Your national insurance history matters. Your date of reaching state pension age matters. And, depending on your circumstances, you may have additional state pension entitlement. The government confirms that the full new state pension is currently £241.30 a week, but your own amount can be higher or lower depending on your national insurance record and other factors. This is why I would strongly recommend checking your own state pension forecast rather than assuming the headline figure applies to you. There is another important group to remember: people who live outside the UK. The triple lock does not necessarily operate in exactly the same way for every pensioner living abroad. Some countries have arrangements with the UK under which state pension payments are increased, while pensions can remain frozen in certain countries. So, if you live overseas, don't automatically assume that a UK-wide headline increase will apply to your payment. Your circumstances and country of residence matter. And there's another point that often gets overlooked. Not every part of a state pension payment is necessarily protected by the triple lock. Money Helper explains that certain additional state pension amounts and some increases connected with deferral are treated differently and can be linked to inflation instead. So the phrase £500 more should never be interpreted as every pensioner receiving exactly £500 extra. It is an estimate based on a particular full rate pension. Main section 3. Why the forecast could still change. Now, this is perhaps the most important part of today's update. The number you're hearing today is ***, not the final number, ***. The triple lock calculation uses specific economic data. The latest earnings figures are encouraging for pensioners because earnings growth is currently above both the 2.5% minimum and the inflation figure being discussed. But there is still more data to come. Pensions Age reports that another month of earnings information is needed before the final figure used for the triple lock can be established. That means the current 4.1% figure could change. If the final relevant earnings figure remains the highest measure, then earnings growth could determine the uprating. But if the economic picture changes significantly, the outcome could be different. And this is exactly why I think pensioners should be careful with headlines that present today's forecast as a guaranteed payment. The sensible approach is to view the current £500 plus estimate as an indication of what could happen if the current earnings trend is maintained. It is not yet a promise of an exact amount. Another important issue, the tax allowance. There is another reason this possible increase is getting attention. The personal allowance for income tax is currently frozen at £12,570. The full new state pension for 2026/27 is £12,548.60 a year. That means the full state pension is already very close to the frozen personal allowance. If the state pension rises by approximately 4.1% in April 2027, the full amount would move above £12,570. Based on the current forecast, it could reach approximately £13,064 a year, depending on the final uprating. That creates an important tax question. Now, I want to be very careful here. Receiving a state pension above the personal allowance does not mean every pensioner suddenly receives a tax bill for the entire pension. Income tax depends on your total taxable income and your available allowances. If you have private pension income, employment income, savings income, or other taxable income, your individual situation can be different. And the government has previously indicated that pensioners who rely solely on the state pension should be protected from paying income tax as a result of the state pension rising above the allowance. Although the practical details of how that would work have been a subject of discussion. So, this is another area where pensioners should wait for official clarification rather than making assumptions. Main section 4. What this could mean for household budgets. Let's step away from the headline number for a moment. An increase of around £10 a week may sound modest, but over a full year, It can add up to more than £500 for someone receiving the full new state pension. That could help with everyday expenses. For one household, it might help cover part of an energy bill. For another, it could help with groceries. For someone else, it could provide a little more breathing room for transportation, household costs, or unexpected expenses. But we also have to remember inflation. An increase in pounds and pence does not automatically mean an increase in living standards. If prices rise at the same time, the real value of that additional money can be smaller. This is one reason the triple lock exists in the first place. Money Helper explains that the system is intended to help protect the value of state pension income as wages and prices change. From my perspective, the most useful way to look at the forecast is not simply to ask, how much more will I receive? It's also worth asking, what will that extra money actually buy next year? That's a much more meaningful question for household budgeting. Main Section 5. What pensioners should watch next? So, what happens from here? There are several things worth watching. First, keep an eye on the remaining earnings data. The current 4.1% figure is important, but it is not necessarily the final number. Second, watch the inflation figures. Remember, the triple lock selects the highest of the relevant earnings growth, inflation, and 2.5% measures. Third, watch for the government's formal confirmation of the 2027 over 28 state pension rates. That's when the forecast becomes an actual official rate. And fourth, if you are concerned about tax, don't just rely on social media posts or headlines. Look at official information from HMRC and the Department for Work and Pensions when the final arrangements are announced. If your financial situation is complicated, particularly if you have multiple sources of income, professional financial or tax advice may also be appropriate. In my opinion, the latest forecast is encouraging for people who depend heavily on their state pension. A possible increase of around £500 a year would certainly be meaningful for many households. But I also think it's important not to celebrate a forecast as though it were already guaranteed. There is still data to come. The final triple lock calculation has not been completed, and individual pension payments will vary. I believe the best approach is to stay informed without making financial decisions based solely on an early estimate. If you're planning your household budget for 2027, I would personally use a cautious figure rather than assuming the maximum forecast will definitely happen. Then, when the official rate is confirmed, you can adjust your budget accordingly. That's much safer than planning around money that hasn't actually been confirmed yet. So let's quickly recap today's update. The full new state pension is currently £241.30 per week for 2026 over 27. New earnings data is showing around 4.1% annual growth in the measure currently being watched for the triple lock. If that figure ultimately becomes the basis for the April 2027 increase, the full new state pension could rise to around £251.20 per week. That would represent approximately £9.90 more each week, and around £500 to £515 more over a full year. But once again, asterisk, this is a forecast, not a confirmed rate, asterisk. The final figure depends on the remaining data and the official triple lock calculation. And there is another issue to watch closely: the interaction between the state pension and the frozen £12,570 personal allowance. The possible 2027 increase could push the full new state pension above that threshold, which is why tax arrangements and government clarification will be important for some pensioners. Most importantly, remember that your own state pension may be different from the headline full rate. Your national insurance record and individual circumstances determine how much you actually receive. So don't assume that a £500 forecast means you personally will receive exactly £500 more. I hope this explanation has made the latest state pension forecast a little easier to understand. If you receive the UK state pension, I'd love to know what you think about the current forecast. Do you think the triple lock should continue in its current form, or do you think the system needs to change in the future? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this update useful, please give the video a like. It really helps the channel. Subscribe to **Angela Talks and turn on notifications so you don't miss future updates about pensions, benefits, taxes, and other important changes affecting households across the UK. Most importantly, remember that forecasts can change. For decisions that could affect your money, always check the latest information from official government sources, such as gov.uk, the Department for Work and Pensions, and HMRC. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Emily Lilly, and I'll see you in the next update.